pearl has been hypnotising humans for centuries. Thousands have risked their lives in pursuit of this precious piece of nature.
Pearls are one of those that man just seems to be attracted to. There's something about them that's indescribable. If you put a beautiful pearl in somebody's hand, they will look at it, they'll study it, and for some reason, a lot of people like to possess it.
And spectacular is the place they're grown. These isolated bays of territory have pretty water and some of the biggest tidal flows in the world, which is the perfect recipe for making perfect pearls. I'm at one of the most remote communities in Australia, the Paspali Pearl Farm at Port Bremer, about 200 kilometres northeast of Darwin on the Coburg Peninsula, or about an hour's flight by seaplane. It's one of 20 pearl farms along 2,500 kilometres of virtually uninhabited coastline. Now, South Sea pearl oysters are sensitive souls. They need a spot protected from cyclones with no pollution but plenty of nutrients flowing through the water. These are what's known as first operation oysters. So first operation meaning they only have one pearl?
Yes, these have been seeded for the first time.
Yep.
So these oysters 6 months ago would have been on the 80 Mile Beach.
The oysters don't just magically create a pearl. They're collected in the wild by pearl divers, then sorted, cleaned and put on a panel. They go back in the ocean for about 8 weeks to rest and recuperate. Then finally, the oysters are seeded and that's what produces the pearl.
Seed an oyster, we actually get a piece of nacre producing tissue from one oyster and transfer that into another oyster with a nucleus, which is a round bead. That process stimulates the pearl to grow. Essentially it replicates the natural process.
Once they're seeded, the oysters are brought here to the pearl farm, where they're treated like expectant mothers and given plenty of TLC. Then, it's a long wait.
So that takes 2 years before we get the first pearl. So it's a pretty long process and there's a lot of effort, time and money goes into it.
To make sure this environment stays in tip-top shape, Australia's pearl producers got together with the Fisheries Research and Development Corporation to find out just how much impact these farms have on their surroundings. Researchers took samples of the seabed at 3 different pearl farms over a 3-year period. They analysed them for nutrients and chemicals and found that the pearl farms had no impact on the seabed below. And that's great news for producers like Paspali.
What it means is we can be confident that what we're doing is not being detrimental to the environment, and that's very important for us because we need to do that to maintain the health of our oysters, which underpin our pearl production. The other one is that it gives the community comfort as well in a very rigorous scientific way that, again, they can be comforted that we're not impacting on the environment as well.
In the early days, some pearl farms could only produce pearls for about 7 years. But some of these farms have now been in operation for 50 years and they're getting more productive. Now these big suckers are your veterans. They've already grown 2 pearls already and this guy here is in the process of growing a big fat third. And they weigh a hefty 1.5 kilos. These guys create the most prized pearls of all, the big mamas worth up to $100,000 each. Australia now has a reputation for producing the best pearls in the world. And it doesn't look like we'll be giving up that title anytime soon. Contact Paspali to find out more about pearl farming, or if you want to pick up your own natural beauty. And head to the FRDC website for details on the seabed study and all their other great fisheries research.